See if anything weird happens. New. All right, and we're live. What's up? Welcome to the Social Jello with Angelo podcast. We are live right now. I'm here with Timothy Bruce. Do you like being called Timothy or do you prefer Tim?
Tim.
Tim. Yeah, there we go, Tim. With Tim Bruce. Um, from Colt Combatives coming out of Arkansas. Now today
Yep.
we're oh sorry. Did I get that right
Yep.
so far?
Got it right. All good.
All right. I'm live, so I can't really change anything at this point. Not that I would, but So, oh yeah, thank you to my martial arts communities following the show, especially the Kempo community. Thanks for following, and particularly the Kajukenbo community. I really appreciate you following the show and joining in on these discussions. Today, loyalty. Sorry, my thing's going off on the side here. I'm gonna try to shut that down real quick. So loyalty in martial arts. There's this concept in martial arts that you have to be loyal to your style, loyal to your teachers, loyal to your instructors, your coaches, loyal to your system. What does that really mean? It means different things for different people according to the different styles you're in. Now, different styles have different philosophies on this. So, I guess to open this discussion up, Tim, you're a coach. What kind of loyalty do you expect out of your students, and what would you consider something disloyal?
Hmm. So for me, the only loyalty I ever expect is like they trust that I got their well-being in mind. Like I'm trying to train them the right way. As far as loyalty, it usually comes down to just sticking with the system until they get the results. Because some people they train for 2, 3 weeks and they're getting their ass whooped and they feel, man, this ain't working. Well, sometimes you got to learn how to box for a little while. You got to grapple for a while before it starts clicking. So to me, the loyalty really comes down to sticking, give me that first 3 months, that first year, so we can actually show you some results, as opposed to, man, this ain't working right off the rip, and they just walk out the door because they haven't seen instant results.
And how about beyond that? What if they stick around long enough? They stick around, they train with you for 2 years. Some people feel that loyalty would mean sticking around until you get your black belt, right? And then when you get your black belt, they feel that if you're going to go teach, you need to ask permission to teach the techniques that you taught them. And if you were to go teach the techniques without asking your blessing, they get their black belt from you, they get their instructor certificate from you, but then they go turn around, they start teaching something, or they start teaching what you taught them, what you told them to teach, but they're
Yep.
teaching it, never asked you to open a gym, and they turn around, they open a gym across from your gym, and now people are going over there. How does that look? Where do you draw the line between this? When is it okay or not okay to do something like this, in your opinion?
So I think we all agree we'd love it for all of our students to get the black belt under us, and then they go on their journey. But life happens. I've got tons of guys that trained with me for a year or two, and then they life took them elsewhere. But I personally would never say don't ever teach that, because to me, if it works, it works, and I'd love for more people to be able to do what we do, regardless if he's the best at it or a novice at it. I personally I'm okay with people sharing information, because I think that's the best thing about martial arts is sharing, and what I usually call stealing information from each other. Right? We None of us created it. Somebody else did it before us. So we're all stealing it and stealing it and stealing it. And whether it's passed down directly from one guy to another, or even look at the Kajukenbo guys, they're all partisan pieces of the martial arts. None of them were the fullest extent, the highest level of their art. They had pieces that they took to and passed on. So to me, it's within the spirit of martial arts to kind of pass on information, regardless if you had the full curriculum or not.
And then for you, you're a Kajukenbo guy, and I know you have a background in different styles. Just real quick for the viewer that doesn't know, a quick like bullet point of the other styles you cross train in.
Yep. Black belt in Kajukenbo, black belt in Krav Maga, and a black belt in Jeet Kune Do. And then I do a lot of catch wrestling, and I've been doing catch wrestling for about 8 years.
All right, so let's go to the Jeet Kune Do community real quick. There's some people in the Jeet Kune Do community that feel that then I know there's a split. I'm not a Jeet Kune Do guy. I'm gonna say that right off the bat, right now. Okay, so I'm gonna say right now before Jeet Kune Do. There's some JKD guys that jump on my show. There's a split in the JKD community. There's the people that come from a method that say there should be no belts because originally there was no belts, and then there's another side of the community that says there should be belts because otherwise, how are you going to know what level someone is and when is someone certified or not certified to do something. So the belt system is kind of important. That being said, in the Jeet Kune Do community, well, same question. What would be considered loyalty and what would be considered disloyalty in that community?
Okay. Stemming from that. So you have two sides. The people that say there aren't belts in Jeet Kune Do, right? And anyone doing otherwise is disloyal to Bruce Lee's philosophy. Well, he had certificates, he had ranks, they were even colored, and he was even pictured to be wearing belts at a certain point. So he was tumbling around the idea of belts and using belts because it's a codified system, you know. Kanda proved that it worked, and karate's proven that it worked. So he's moving his way that way too. He just had colored what do you call it? The Taoist symbol. He had colored variations of that that represented your rank in Jeet Kune Do, and he was giving those out to his private lesson people. So he did have belts, or if they weren't physical belts, they're at least color coded rank insignias. And so you got people that say that's loyalty by not using belts, and you got other people that say if you do use his codes, that's loyalty. And then beyond that, there's a big severance in Jeet Kune Do where Dan Ensenado kind of went his own way, and then you had other guys go the other way. So some say his Jeet Kune Do is not real Jeet Kune Do, and that guy's Jeet Kune Do is not real Jeet Kune Do. But that's kind of the point. It's not supposed to be real Jeet Kune Do because you're never going to be Bruce Lee, and you're never going to have Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. So the loyalty is where I think a lot of the actual friction comes from. Trying to be loyal to one person or one person's way is the exact opposite of the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, which is funny because Jeet Kune Do is some of the most polarized, extremely loyal, overly ambitious, hyperbole filled, fanboy martial arts. So,
And since you cross train, let's go with that same question to Krav Maga. What's considered loyal and disloyal in Krav Maga?
so Krav Maga is funny because there's three kinds of Krav Maga. So you got the Krav Maga, which is taught in the Israeli combatives, which is essentially a 2-week program of a dude trying to get you aggressive and learn how to fight. And his Krav Maga is gonna be whatever the fuck that guy knew. If he knew boxing and wrestling, you're gonna learn boxing and wrestling. If he knew some traditional Krav Maga, you're gonna learn that. The second Krav Maga is what Amy Lichtenfield, the guy who actually created it, had a curriculum. And this is back in 50s, and it was basically your generic judo, wrestling, boxing, and karate tekka type combatives program. Nothing fancy, just like all our other World War II combatives programs. So you could say it's more loyal to learn that curriculum, or it's more loyal to stick to what your instructor taught you. And then you have the third instance of Krav Maga, which is what karate had back in the 60s, where you just got a bunch of dudes out of shape trying to fucking make a buck. So they sell belts and they run you through this curriculum that may or may not work, and they want your loyalty, but their loyalty is more so they want your money. So they want you to keep paying in to use their name. So you could be loyal to Emmy, you could be loyal to your instructor, or you can be loyal to the overarching umbrella that, wants the pyramid to keep growing.
And then for any of you watching right now at this point, if you have any comments or questions about loyalty or you have your own opinions about it, feel free to say it on YouTube and I will bring in your question or comment into the discussion. Now, that being said, Tim, do you have any questions for me?
Let's see. All right. How do you feel when one of your students goes and trains somewhere else for a day, cross trains at another gym?
I think it's great. In fact, I just had this happen 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I had some kids come in, and as usual, I don't know if it's as usual for me. I say as usual for me in Japan. No one has ever walked into my doors saying, "Oh, I should say that. I should take that back now." Only one person in the 6 years that I've been training out here walked into the doors saying, "You teach Kajukenbo? Awesome. That's what I want to learn." One in 6 years. Everyone else who walked into my doors came in looking at the acronym, came in looking at the hashtags on Instagram, and either came in mostly for kickboxing, MMA, or jiu-jitsu. That's what the first words that come out of their mouth as they walk in every time. "Oh, I saw your Instagram. I want to do kickboxing. Can I do this here?" "Sure." "Oh, I want to do jiu-jitsu. Can I do this here?" "Sure." "I want to do MMA. Can I do this here?" "Yeah." Gotta get a foundation. And that's why it's usually my first question for these people. You have to have a foundation. If you're a complete beginner, and I was telling you off camera, I have a group of delinquent, I have a group of at-risk youth that I'm working with right now, and they don't have a base, and they don't have anything. So I told those guys, hey, if you have a base already, you can train at my gym. So like if you come in with a black belt in Kyokushin, or you're already a retired pro boxer, or retired sumo wrestler. I have a retired sumo wrestler, believe it or not. And I also have a black belt in judo. If you ever have a black belt in something, and maybe Kajukenbo is not for you, maybe you looked at it and your goals just don't align, you don't need a new foundation. Because Kajukenbo, I still feel, I'm kind of biased here, is a great foundation. It's a great, the kind of, and I'm not gonna brag or anything. What I was taught, I feel, is a great foundation to branch off into just about anything. And I think a lot of Kajukenbo guys would feel the same. So if you don't have anything, you're a beginner, you don't know what the fuck you want. I still think that Kajukenbo is a great foundation. Now, if you have another foundation that you're coming from, though, and you feel, I kind of don't want to foundation my foundation. I'm cool. I'm totally cool with just having my judo, be my judo, and I want to get into MMA. And maybe I just want to learn some boxing to make sure I don't get knocked out, and then I can use my judo. If that's the case, then you are open. I do have this rule that says you can train at my gym. Just don't interrupt my classes. That's it. Don't interrupt my classes. I have a jiu-jitsu class and a Kajukenbo class. A jiu-jitsu class under Joe Morera. I'm under S. Kai Lee, for those of you who are wondering. And there's a jiu-jitsu class under that lineage for jiu-jitsu. And it's gi and no gi jiu-jitsu with a very heavy emphasis in MMA, especially for the testing, because that's how Joe Morera is a previous UFC fighter. Why am I going this long spiel before I answer your question? Because it's important you need some context to why I'm going to say the answer of why I don't mind if someone goes somewhere else. I'm not a full-time teacher. I have a full-time job, and I can't full-time. I just don't have the time for that. I have to pay the bills. Martial arts, I don't know. If you guys are paying all your bills just solely on martial arts, that's awesome. Fucking high five. Virtual high five right here. That is fantastic. I've never been able to pull that off. I don't have the time to pull that off. I put my time and energy to teach English as a second language in Japan, and that pays my bills. So I got to focus on what pays my bills. But I still love martial arts. So I have formal classes with my schedule twice a week. And then the rest of the days are open mat. I'm open with my schedule, which is limited, every morning for private lessons. So I understand if a student comes in and says, hey, I want a box. Well, unfortunately, I don't have that much time to help you become a professional boxer, especially if you don't already have a foundation. I can help you supplement. If you already have a foundation, then cool. You can come in. You already know what to do. I don't got to sit there and tell you to keep your hands up while you're throwing your jab. If you're already a retired pro boxer or even won a few matches and you've already gotten your way up, you already know how to throw a jab. You already know all your basics. So essentially, all you need is a place to sharpen your basics. So you can come in here, you can hit the bags, you can do your cardio. I can supplement your cardio. I can tell you, I can give you cardio drills that you weren't doing in boxing. That are going to come from my experiences in MMA, and we can help you do that. So I can be there for you, and then if you work with me, I can hold the pads for you and during private lessons and help you sharpen some stuff. But if you're a beginner and you have no base and you want to box and you don't want to do MMA, it's going to be a little bit of a problem because, like I just told you, I teach a Kajukenbo class and I teach a jiu-jitsu class. And none of those two things do not have enough boxing basics to get you ready for a boxing match. You're going to do stuff to kick out of boxing. I'm going to instinctually put things in you that will get you kicked out of boxing. Stuff like, okay, jab straight, lift up your leg to take a low leg kick so you can check the low leg kick. That little stuff, we can always say theoretically, oh, just don't do that when you box. Let me tell you a story about that. I got a friend, and he's not a Kajukenbo guy, that did he did an array of different martial arts. He did some Precision, did some MMA, he did some Kempo, and he did some kickboxing and some boxing. And he decided to get into boxing, and he came from that background. And he made the mistake during his pro debut of wearing his gi. He wore his gi into the match. So he had his gi and a black belt on. So everybody looked at him as a karate guy right off the bat. And the judges were seriously looking to make sure that he was only boxing. And he was throwing a jab straight. And as he threw his straight, he kind of stepped up like a Superman punch, which is not illegal in boxing. But judges thought he was going to throw a roundhouse kick. Immediately stopped him. Like the referee like stepped in and didn't let him complete the punch, because he thought he was going to throw a kick. And he warned him, stop lifting your leg. Told him, stop lifting your leg. I don't want to see that. No, none of that karate shit in here. So, and that's an inexperienced martial artist, right? So,
Right.
small example, and I know that was a long time ago. I know the world's been a little bit more acclimated to MMA at this point. Even the boxing world has. But because of that, if I do have someone come in that says I want to do boxing, like in the case of that one, those two students, they were with me for a long time, for about a year or two, about a year, to be honest. The second year, but this happened in the first year. And in the first year, they wanted to be kickboxers. I said, okay, let's do Kajukenbo. We did Kajukenbo, gave them a Kajukenbo base for about a year. And within a few months, because one of them already, and then they came from a group, and one of them already was like in a fight club. So that guy already had a base of kickboxing. So he was able to do his first match right away. The kids, I said, oh, just wait a few more months. So we waited about 6 more months, and they did their kickboxing match about 6 months in, 8 months in. And I told them, you still might lose because you got to remember, even though you're in Japan and it's an amateur match, you're making the mistake of thinking everyone's a beginner.
Yeah.
Yes,
So at it forever.
quote unquote, these are all beginners. And even on the paper, they might say, oh, because it's your first fight. The other person it's their quote unquote first fight, maybe. But usually it might be someone who's been an amateur and they've been doing kickboxing since they were 4 years old. And you're 12, just started doing kickboxing for a year. So think about how much you're pretty much going up against a black belt. Now, and that's what happened to both these guys. And I warned them that might happen. I said, this might happen. That's why I would prefer for you to wait at least 2 years. And I know you're in a hurry. If you don't want to get hurt, I'd prefer you wait 2 years. And they didn't, and they did it. And long story short, they decided that they didn't want to do kickboxing anymore. Like, oh, that was scary. I don't want to do it. No, that's fine. Again, these are all your decisions. You tell me what you want to do. And if I advise you not to do it, but you're going to do it anyway, then I'm going to try to help you do it in the most safe way possible. So then these guys said, we want to do boxing. They switched. And that's when I said, you know what? Let me talk to my boxer. Because I have a boxer, believe it or not. I have a pro boxer who trains here. And yeah, I cornered him for his it was an amateur title shot. And he got it. So there's a picture of a boxing champion in my gym, which really confuses people. But I always tell people he came from pro. He already was a boxer when he came in here. Yeah, he credits me for being his coach, but that was all the work he put in. I was just there. Um, so I told him like, I talked to him and he talked to his coach, and we sent those kids to go do boxing. I said, go over there, go do boxing. So a long answer to your question, yeah, I'm totally okay with it, especially if it's not something that I can hold their hand through for the rest of their life. So like, I sent them over. They did some boxing. Funny that you asked me that question because this last week, their friend came in and told me that they're probably going to come back soon. I'm like, why? What's going on? Like, they hate boxing. They're done. They're sick of boxing. They want to come back and just do what they were doing here, and they want to get back into kickboxing. I'm like, all right, cool. We'll tell them the door's always open. I told them that when they left. I'm like, you can leave. I mean, the door is always open. You can do both. You can do both, I told them. But, just when you're here, you're probably going to want to focus more on just the Kajukenbo curriculum and not just kickboxing. Because, to be honest, the Kajukenbo curriculum is so different from boxing. The chances of you messing up and doing Kajukenbo stuff in boxing, you really have to be drilling that self-defense stuff that badly. So, like, I can easily tweak it and fix it that you go to do boxing, you come into my class, and I know you're a boxer. So when we do our line basics, we do our karate line basics, blocks and kicks and stuff. But then later when you're sparring, I'll just tell the guys, okay, you're gonna do boxing. You just do
Yeah.
boxing. Don't do any kickboxing sparring, don't do any MMA sparring, so you don't get any bad habits for your boxing. That's an easy thing to remedy. So they can train at both places. Just most people, like I said earlier, just like me, don't have time. They don't have time to do both. And that's fine. Again, I don't consider it moral. So
I think me and you both agree on that. Like, if my guy wants to do a point jujitsu contest, I tell him go to the point jujitsu place down the road and train with them because you're going to need to get those reps in and that training in for that type of scenario that you're going to face. But I would say that we're a minority. I would say that the majority of traditional martial artists, hybrid martial artists, MMA coaches, they get a little jealous when their guys go elsewhere, and like people feel that as like a personal sting of loyalty. I had a spat with my coach one time just because over a technique. We disagreed on a sidekick, and it turned into this big old argument. He was calling me unloyal and all kinds of crap. We we hugged and made up after the fact, but like the fact is, like, we had a whole loyalty argument one time over how to throw the proper sidekick. And so every coach is going to have their own little jealousy. Hey, here's the thing: every martial artist, every coach, every student, they're just a person. They're just a person. So how you view loyalty is the same way you view the loyalty of your friends. I got some friends I don't have to talk to every day. I can talk to them once a year and we'd be able to catch up. There's a couple students I got like that. I might see them once every month, but the continuity continues. I don't consider it disloyal because they went off training and came back. If anything, I'm like, cool. You learn anything cool? Show me. Let's go over what you went over. So I think loyalty in that sense is outdated. Loyalty in the sense of you should stay to one style, one coach, one this for the rest of your life. And if you do anything else, you should fucking commit seppuku. Like I don't think that should be how it is anymore. And for the most part, I don't think most people in at least, the West look at it like that anymore. Nowadays it's product. They don't like this product, they just go get the other product, and sometimes they buy both products. I know people that are members of multiple gyms in my area. They pay a fuck ton in fees, but they train everywhere they can, or they hit the open mats at least everywhere they can. But I think there's, for those people that want it though, I do think that the camaraderie and the loyalty in that sense is important for the people that want to be a black belt under you. Like, I feel like it's less about loyalty of your students and more so loyalty to a coach. You know what I mean? Like, being loyal to your student, making sure you can see them through their journey, because I've had a lot of coaches that like were training me for a while and they had to dip out. That sucks. And I'm kind of in the midst of having to do that with some of my students. We just downsized from our gym, partner up with another gym. And I did that literally just to make sure that my guys had a home. So, I think if in modern martial arts, loyalty is actually more on the coach than it is the student.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. Like, are you loyal? We're saying martial, and I think that's the nice part about making that broad loyalty in martial arts, because I think that's something that's not talked about enough, is the two-way street of loyalty. A lot of people hear loyalty and they say, "Oh, loyalty is the loyalty you show to your instructor." Well, what about the loyalty you show to your student?
Yep.
The weirdest part about martial arts is that we are selling like you just said earlier, we're selling a product, we're providing a service, and we're providing this service under a lot of strange conditions. It's very different. Any other place, I go in, I buy a product, or I buy a service of some sort, and that belongs to me. I paid for it. It's mine now. What I do with it once I paid for it is my business, not yours. But in martial arts, there's a little bit more of a weird thing going on here, where you pay for the service, you don't really own the thing that is being provided to you. So if you learn stuff from the person, depending on the school you're at, you can't necessarily teach it right away. Even if you already know, even if that's another really weird thing. Let's say you already come from another martial art, so you already are a teacher. So you already know some principles and you're pretty quick at picking stuff up and turning it around and teaching it right away because you're already an instructor. You're coming in to cross train somewhere else. So you already have that ability to look at something, kinesthetically learn it right away, put it in your repertoire, drill it, and teach it. And you're already effective. If you're already an effective fighter, a great example of this was Georges St-Pierre. Georges St-Pierre, after a UFC fight, I forgot when, if it was during an interview, meets up with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan teaches him how to throw a spinning sidekick. Apparently, he didn't know it. Or maybe he did know it, but he didn't know how to throw it the way Joe Rogan did it on the back. And he's like, I like that. That's really cool, because Joe Rogan's like bragging to him that he used to do taekwondo and kickboxing and stuff. Check this out. And St. George St-Pierre looked at that and said, wow, the way you do it is really nice. And he taught George St-Pierre. George St-Pierre put in a drill on that, but by the next fight, he TKO'd his opponent with that kick. Right? Joe Rogan didn't sit there and be like, hey, man, how much money are you going to give me for your purse?
That's my kick. And that's
so I want 10%
kick. You're kind of you're kind of bringing up that line of intellectual property in martial arts, right? Intellectual property in martial arts. Outside of class structure, there's always someone who did it before you. I don't think there's a single technique, that can be done that hasn't been done before and be done hundreds of years enough ago that it's public domain, no matter how you slice or dice it or what country you find yourself in, So yeah, like that sidekick, it wouldn't matter. There's no way in hell you can intellectually claim that. There's no way you can claim an armbar. There's no way you can claim a hip toss. I feel that that's the beauty of martial arts is you don't own it, but whatever you can produce with your body is what you own. That is your truest expression, right? The whole Jeet Do concept. What you can do with your body is your expression. So if you picked up how to do that thing, regardless of who taught you, if it's your thing now and you can do it, it's yours. And
now let's go to the other side of this. And for those of you watching, I encourage you. What do you think is loyalty? What would you consider as disloyal? If you just joined us, if you're a martial arts student or a martial arts instructor, what is disloyal? What do you think is disloyal in your school? Go into the comments in now. What I would consider as disloyal is flat out plagiarism. That's when I would get upset. If I found out that one of my students has Kajukenbo Hyogo Japan logo at their gym, they're wearing Kajukenbo Hyogo Japan, and they're a blue belt, yellow belt, brown belt, whatever belt, they're a colored belt, and they throw on a black belt and they say, hey, I'm a Kajukenbo instructor under Angelo Ferrer. That's where I will draw the line. I'll be like, hey, you can't do that. You can't do. You can teach Kajukenbo. I really don't mind. Like, you want to teach my techniques? I really don't care. Like, in fact, one of my karate guys did that. And he was like, hey, I was going over. He didn't ask me. He did it, and I really didn't care. I really didn't care because he said it. He said, oh, I love Kajukenbo, and he's already a black belt in karate, and he already teaches us. I forgot the style of karate he teaches. And he said, yeah, today we went over some Kajukenbo techniques in class with my guys, and they loved it. Right? And I commented on that. Awesome. He never said I'm a Kajukenbo instructor. He said, hey, I learned this with Angelo, and this is the stuff that I enjoy. I wanted to share it with you. That's awesome. That's more people. There's hardly anyone's doing Kajukenbo out here in Japan. That's awesome. You taught them some stuff. They enjoyed it. Great job. The end. The only time I'd have is if not sometimes, if he were to open a Kajukenbo school. Like,
it's more so about disloyalty and more about dishonesty.
Yeah, that's more about.
You feel that dishonesty is disloyalty.
Yeah, dishonesty would be disloyalty because he's my student, right?
Yep.
I don't mind if he's teaching my techniques. So, like, on the other hand, so if someone grabbed my logo without my permission, that would be more of a copyright problem. That would be more of a copyright problem if they start saying that they are Kajukenbo Hyogo Japan, right? And they opened their own school, or if they had their own school and they started using my logo, Kajukenbo Hyogo Japan, then I would have a little bit of a problem because I'm like, hey, my logo is there. So now anybody who sees what you're doing, and they start showing stuff that's not Kajukenbo, what I teach at all. Like, right?
Yeah, put your name on it and then do something else.
Yeah. Now we're talking some real crazy, but it happens. I've seen it happen online. So, like, they have the logo, they have all that stuff there, but what they're showing is totally not that at all. Like, it's some weird no touch bullshit. Like,
some cheap fighting.
Yeah, that, and again, so with that being said, also what I wouldn't mind if they're kicking ass, like if they have my logo and they didn't ask for it, but they are kicking ass, I'll hit them up and be like, hey, just let them know I'm the guy.
Yeah, tag me.
Just tag me and let them know I'm the one who's, if they're a student of mine, like that. And if they're not a student of mine, hey, I'm the guy. You need to come over here and talk to me. I don't have a problem with it. You're kicking ass, but you have to talk to me about that. We're gonna have to have a conversation about copyright infringement and stuff. But I'm still not going there with you. I'm still not going just yet because it's actually looking pretty good. If you're out there winning fights and making me look good, if anything, I don't know why you're using my. Why don't you use some other logo take all the credit because you're using my logo. I'm kind of confused as to why you're using my logo at this point. But yeah.
I think that's one of the most beautiful things about Kajukenbo is that we almost try to make our black belts branch out and do their own thing. Like I read a comment on one of the pages earlier that someone said how, our Kajukenbo, there's nothing after black. Once you hit black, we consider that you have hit the full curriculum. You've got the information now. You've done it. Everything else is a social rank or a political rank. But once you got that black belt, you got the curriculum. Good job. And now do with it as you please. And I think that is one of the best things about Kajukenbo because it lets us go explore other martial arts. It almost wants us to go explore martial arts and, change things up. Kajukenbo can be what Jeet Kune Do is supposed to be, which is you're not supposed to just carbon copy your instructor or carbon copy, Bruce Lee or CO. You're supposed to kind of do your own fucking thing. You're supposed to express yourself. If you take good to wrestling, wrestle. If you take great to striking, strike. And once you got your black belt, branch out and then add to and mix and go forth. But and I think that's the cool thing about Kajukenbo is that we don't see that as disloyal, but a lot of people in other martial arts would. If you were telling people you're teaching, Kyokushin and then you're teaching double leg takedowns, they'd be like, what the fuck? That's not Kyokushin. There's no way in hell. But if you learn Kajukenbo and then you go and you're teaching double legs, we're like, fuck yeah. That may not have been in the curriculum, but we love it. It's working. We love it.
If it's working for you, then great. Like, yeah. And if your students are succeeding with it, then even better. Like, exactly. more power to you. Like, yeah, the outcome is more important than the process.
Yep. And so here's the third spur of this conversation. So we talked about the student's loyalty to the instructor's loyalty to the student. But what about the rampant loyalty to the style?
Yay.
Right? I don't care what feats one individual in your style has. That doesn't necessarily speak for the whole style. So, or if your style's been beaten to the dirt, but you swear up and down, no, they're just not doing it right. My instructor's the only one that, or my style of it is the only one that does that style right. That's too much loyalty to your style. At a certain point, you might want to branch out. You find that you keep getting your ass kicked by one type of technique and the answer is not in your style, it's okay to branch out. It's okay to look elsewhere. You don't have to be stuck in your style just because of a false sense of loyalty to something, And me personally, once you start worshiping a person, place, or thing, whether that thing be a style or not, that is a definition of culty. Okay, that's a cult. So it's okay to branch out and not be loyal to one idea. You can be a jiu-jitsu guy and go learn some wrestling. You can be a judo guy and learn some jiu-jitsu or any style. It's okay. But, there's still a lot of people that they get told like, oh, don't train outside your style because like the style is everything. The style's got everything. And even if it does, it doesn't mean you need to raise it. It's not gospel. No matter what, it's not gospel. There's no law saying you only learn Kajukenbo and can never learn anything else. And everything else is trash. And Kajukenbo is the only one. As far as I know, most Kajukenbo guys, we're not like that. We're like, Kajukenbo is great. And so is this. But a lot of styles, it's Shotokan's the best karate. Judo's the best grappling.
Yeah. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is the best for MMA. The end.
BJJ is everything. It's the greatest thing since goddamn sliced bread. It's definitely not Jiu-Jitsu in origin or Judo in origin. That doesn't matter. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the best. So
we have some. I'm gonna interrupt you, Tim, because we have some landmine comments here.
Here we go.
Some landmine comments here. I'm gonna answer it first, and then I'll let you answer it second. It's a landmine. I'm interested to know. Okay, Steph, thank you very much for joining us. I'm interested to know if either of you belong to any Kajukenbo associations. Seems like loyalty has become so political. I also think the attitude you guys have is, I'm trying to see it. There's a giant heart reaction over the. Oh, okay. I have is the only modern Kaji. Okay, so if I paraphrase this, she says, I think the attitude you guys have is the only way modern Kajukenbo is going to survive. Thank you very much, Steph. To answer your question about the associations, me personally, I don't belong to any associations. Now, I do work with a lot of associations. Running my podcast, I've interviewed people from the Gaylord Association, from the KSDI Association, from BOA, the board of oh boy, board of hold on a second. Before I mess that up some more, let me make sure I say that right. BOA, Kajukenbo, because I don't want to, because they're good friends of mine. KSDI board, the board of advisors. That's what I want to say. I have people from the board of advisors on here. Those are all associations and groups and stuff, which is totally cool. So yeah, to quickly answer your question, no, I don't belong to any associations. If you choose to join an association, and I think Tim has a great story of why you might want to, because he was talking about some grant stuff earlier to me off camera. But me personally, I've always supported any associations out there because I'm very much open to Kajukenbo being Kajukenbo, but I don't belong to any associations. Tim?
I still currently don't belong to any organizations either. And it's mainly because what I do is so varied away from the source material that it's hard to just glue myself into a pre-established umbrella. And what I teach my guys is hard to just stab them underneath an umbrella. So I don't go underneath under any organization. That's because, like I said earlier, I think martial arts should be a free thing as far as like the information. I think we should all freely share. There shouldn't be any like this ain't the 1950s. Don't teach them that. That's our stuff. Don't teach that. Like it's for everyone. Martial arts is for everyone. It's out there. You know, every technique in the world is on YouTube. There's no hidden techniques anymore, and that's the beauty of it. So I don't belong to any, and I think the reason I belong to anything is because I like the freedom to be able to teach and train how I want to without having to pay dues. You know, I got enough bills.
And then Tim, you did bring up one time though to me off camera about why you were considering an association. If you want to,
yep. So the one reason I considered trying to join one of the Kajukenbo associations is because there are a lot of grants for children that if they are a black belt or trained in a certain style under big styles for long enough time, or that the government actually give them grants for martial arts because they treat it like a sports grant, so they can get money towards their college just by being a martial artist. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So I was reaching out trying to find Kajukenbo associations that I could get into, so that way my kids can apply for those grants. So that's one reason why it's a good thing.
Yeah,
the second thing is a really good thing is like it's okay to have an ohana. Like that's our whole shtick. Whether you're in the organization or not, like us coming together, no matter what reason or title or organization, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and that what I was also going to add to that, not just the grants. Sometimes when you're applying for martial arts equipment for your school, if you run a school, if you have an association, there's discounts that they'll give you. So like sometimes you can apply as a school, but when you belong to an association that's verified, the company will recognize you as a bigger school or a bigger organization, and they'll give you a bigger discount for gear for your kids. So again, there's some business side stuff. Let's take this out. Let's take this context out of Kajukenbo real quick. If you belong to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu association, and your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu association is affiliated with IBJJF, then when they have IBJJF, International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation tournaments, which are the biggest tournaments in the world, and they're held internationally, and they're usually the ones sponsoring every single tournament you see out there. They're behind the grinding force behind that is Carlos Gracie Jr. and the whole Gracie Association. He's the one who's behind all that, which is directly tied to Gracie Baja, because that's his school. So it's like the school is separate from the association itself, but the reason they work together is because he's the president of that association, and they allow anyone to join their tournament, but they have to be recognized as an IBJJF school, and they have to they have to pay money, they have to pay dues. And once you pay those association fees, if you belong to that association, you can participate in that tournament. So again, that's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo to say that would be a reason outside of Kajukenbo that you would consider being in an association. And this doesn't just, that was just one example. This happens in karate. This happens in a lot of different styles. Being a part of the association allows you to participate in the tournaments, which allows your students to gain recognition on the world stage, in some cases the international stage, sometimes the national stage, but it gives you a platform for you to perform under, if that's what your goal is. All right, Tim, I think we covered the loyalty in martial arts pretty well. Steph, thank you so much for asking your questions. And for those of you who just joined, it's a 40-minute podcast live show. Feel free to jump in a little later or a little earlier to see what we covered. And if you have comments, put them in. If you like what you heard, share it with your friends. Social Jello with Angelo podcast. I release one of these a week, and sometimes they're live. Tim, anything you want to plug in? I know you just recently changed locations for your program. You want to throw that out there?
It's still called Combatives. We're still in Mount Home, Arkansas. We're just a little bit down the road. But if you feel like getting some MMA training in, come see us.
All right. Catch y'all next time.